was another one of the streams. I'm just setting up the stream PC. I'm probably gonna do more Roblox Studio because it's so fun. This time I'm gonna focus on the mountain, which is the last part of the game, and I'm hoping to finish it in a few months. Now, will I finish it in a few months? Probably not, but it will be good to try. Yeah, why not? Okay, stream PC is done. Now game PC. Okay. Okay, all the screens are on. OBS. Come here, OBS. Why does it open in the screen now? That's weird. Whatever, you know. I'm using it as a projector, scene projector, so I can copy this screen onto that screen. That's the capture card screen, which copies it there, and then that is YouTube Studio. And there shouldn't be much delay here, right? Okay, there's a little bit of delay, but it's fine. That's the normal setup for delay. Oh yeah, I forgot that I'm using the Mac. Yeah, that's a good thing to find out. Okay, Roblox Studio. With that, turn on some YouTube, and I think I'm all good. Yeah, sure. So this should be the height of the mountain, at least to a degree. There should be a volcano somewhere here. Okay, let's start doing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So this is my 7-day follow-up using the Super Strike, and we've run into a lot of, I guess you can call it issues, the good things, and so let me just get straight to the point and say that I'm pretty sure that this is going to be my new main. I've been testing a lot of stuff, and we'll talk about my journey. So first off, I got delayed doing the 7-day follow-up because of the potential ban that was imposed for people using the Super Strike. I laid it over on screen, I did a follow-up, and then I said, okay, well now I get to finally use this mouse again, so let's see how it goes. So that delayed me a little bit because I was worried about getting banned using it. Why were people getting banned? Well, it has everything to do with that click and the fact that it was potentially inhuman. It was too fast, right? Having too fast of a click. Now, I'm going to showcase on the screen. I did test on a lot of different mouse pads, ranging from glass to cloth to really slow cloth. And there was one where I pulled out a 10-year-old mouse pad, a Logitech mouse pad that I had for a very, very long time.
Maybe now.
Wow, yeah, that was actually a pretty positive experience, believe it or not. This mouse, and the reason why I started using cloth again was because the bottom of the skates were pretty brutal on glass. It just felt like grainy. It just felt really bad. Now the interesting part when I switched back to it on stream, maybe just over time rubbing and using this on cloth for a little while, it started to smooth out a little bit. So that was interesting. So the cloth pad I'm currently using right now is a GSR TR. That's the one I settled on. I did utilize the Yao glass pad. I used the Asus Moonstone. I tried SkyPad. That got tossed out pretty quick. Wasn't a big fan of that. How it felt. And kind of settled on, again, the GSRs were pretty solid in the way they felt. For me, surprisingly. I was a big fan of GSRs. I've used them before. I think Zoe's got really great pads. And the Logitech one was good. I probably just need a newer one. It was definitely too slow. Even though my first time utilizing those, I actually got 4Ks back-to-back in the one night I did ranked. So this mouse has essentially had me reevaluate and say, you know what, cloth is pretty solid. I did order core pads. They take forever to come in, so I'm going to showcase on the screen. They're very expensive, and they take like 2 to 3 weeks. So that's going to kind of change my reassessment. Once I change these to core pads, I have them on my 2C here. So again, I do have them, and yeah, they're not bad. I thoroughly enjoy them. So now let's continue onwards and what we have done so far. The biggest thing of why this is the main driver is the click. The click is what sells this mouse. I'm going to try to showcase it best I can next to the 2C. And I also have another mouse that I want to test as well on cloth. Because tracking, by the way, on cloth is much better. There was some issues with Logitech spinning out on glass, which is why, I mean, luckily this one doesn't as much. Again, it's just the mouse gates that have really deterred me. And I've changed out these to core pads as well. Is that the click is really what makes the mouse feel phenomenal. I really enjoy the click. I play this in World of Warcraft. I think if you play games like League of Legends or anything like that, I stand by that during my review. If you want the review, I'll put it in the comments. Again, the whole point of this is not necessarily talk specs. This is just the after 7 days, am I still using this? Follow up to the review. The full review, I'll put a link down in the description down below. It's just, again, it all comes down to the click. That's the most important thing. So I'll try to showcase the best I can. So I'm going to move this up to the camera. Now, I put mine in the fastest actuation, but like even the smallest bit of tension, ready? Try that again. Even the smallest bit of tension just clicks. And then if you want to click fast, especially with the rapid trigger, which we'll go over settings in just a minute, is just insane. Now, this doesn't make you a better player. Now, on the right trigger, we'll cover settings in a second. Let's cover this point. This doesn't make you a better player, but one thing that I tend to overdo whenever I'm clicking with any mouse is put too much pressure in. Sometimes when you put too much pressure, that means that you essentially end up making a mistake by like pressuring the mouse. It impacts your aim in a negative way. Doesn't mean you can't just be better about clicking in general. Let's showcase now the 2C, right? And you can notice, you could see it. It's a visual thing. Just the click alone in the distance. Now, if you're clicking this, you're clicking it fast, just how much faster you can get a click in. And that's not even me trying versus like, it's fast, but keep in mind when the actuation is low with rapid trigger, my gosh, does this make a big difference? And like the amount of tension. The Super Strike has essentially been teaching me to use less tension whenever I click, which has definitely helped in my click timing scenarios. This does virtually nothing for you, by the way, when it comes to tracking scenarios. Now for Apex Legends, I think what helps me the most is tension factor, the tension in the hand, and making sure that you're kind of smooth and that you relax. And of course, I always recommend, massaging, between rounds and everything. That's important. But just maintaining a consistent flow and just feeling like you don't have to put as much tension on the mouse. That's kind of where the beauty is. Now, a lot of people have said that whenever you clench the mouse really hard, it clicks. I have it at the lowest setting. It's not clicking. I mean, I'm trying to grip that pretty hard, and I've been lucky. And let's kind of grip it towards the front, side. When I do that, I might get a creak all the way at the back. But I was, I guess, a lucky one where I didn't run into that overall issue with the mouse. So there is that as well. Now, let's cover settings. Let's do that real quick. Okay, so these are the settings that I chose. Let's go over the left click first. The left click, I decided to utilize 1. That's the lowest actuation. That's a very short click. I put the rapid trigger at 2. I didn't want to go too crazy with it to make it overly sensitive, and the haptic I have on 1. So I feel a little bit of resistance. I think at 0, again, it feels very mushy. There is no click, and so I don't want it too strong. Now the right click though, if you look at the right click, I have it at 5. So if I do the right click and I barely put pressure, see how it registers the pressure? Oh, too much. But you can see, not gonna register the click. And you can push that even further so you know whether it's gonna register that click or not. Is that, even though I'm pushing down just a little bit, it's not registering the click. You don't want that to be too sensitive, and why I put it at 5, it felt like I was actually did the opposite, or too overly sensitive, and I was like, oh gosh, I gotta be careful with my click. This at least gives me some leeway. I probably put it over to 6 now, to be honest, now that I've gotten a little better with that. Nah, 5. 5 is definitely where it fits best. I prefer the 5, now feeling it out. You don't want to have it be too long of a click where you're having to put too much pressure, but the right amount of pressure, especially when tracking Apex Legends, if you hold the ADS, is really nice. I don't enable rapid trigger on this. I don't feel it's necessary for haptic. I have it at a 3. If you put it at a 4, it uses more battery. I didn't really feel like I needed to really feel it at that point, so I wasn't necessarily too worried about it. Let's go back to the other screen and let's continue talking about this. All right, so the aim training I did pretty much everything I did was mostly tracking and static clicking. I went through voltaic benchmarks is pretty much what I used. I went in game play testing. I did a few full on rank sessions. I did this live. I did this on the side. The gameplay event interweaving here and there is when I get the 4K damage back to back. My static clicking was much sharper. I felt better whenever I was sniping. The tracking is the one thing where I'm like, I thought was worse, but then when I was aim training on stream, glass was pretty much the same, and I was actually scoring a little lower. I think I started getting used to this mouse a lot more, which surprises me. And I was thinking, you know what, maybe I'm just used to cloth. And so this is the, I believe it's called a Firefly. It's an 8K polling as well. I haven't used it in quite some time. But now I pulled this out because I was like, you know, maybe I should try that again now that I'm on a cloth. When I use glass, this was unusable. It just refused to track anything on glass. But this mouse has brought me back to cloth again. And I really enjoy cloth surfaces, and maybe, I don't know what it is. I guess because the tension that I was putting on cloth before was causing too much friction that I enjoyed the glide of glass. But now that I don't put as much tension whenever I'm clicking or even right click holding, and I'm using kind of the bare minimum, kind of that feel. I think before, when I was using like the 2C or any mouse really, I was just over holding. I don't know why. And this mouse has essentially taught me to chill out and stop holding too much pressure. And that's kind of the beauty behind it. And it's just a constant reminder when the clicks are, as you saw before, even in the software, are just so darn sensitive, and they're so light, and they can be really nice. And you can make them heavy if you want. I don't see an absolute any reason why anybody in the right mind, besides the right click, would change this to be a heavy click. Everyone would want that nice, soft, clean click. And that's kind of what's got me addicted to this mouse. And it goes to the bigger question, shape over feel. And I would always say shape is king, and that's why I love the 2C. If they made haptic switches on this, I would immediately run to this right away. But that's why I was questioning. I was like, maybe I should go play test with this more, and I have tons of mice like that. And small mice is where I tend to thrive. I used to keep in mind, I used a Jeep Pro for years. This one was sent to...
Coming! Yeah? the hell? Who the hell is this? Who's watching this? Who the hell watched this, bro? Just one viewer? Whatever.
I love the super light shape. I've used Zowie and been a fan of their products as well. And again, you know, I'll be blunt. Like I shell at Logitech because I love Logitech, especially when they were the first to go wireless. So keep that as a pinch of salt based on what you're hearing about this overall view and take. After 7 days, I kind of thought I would sit this down and be like, nah, I'm done. I'm going back to the 2C. It really opened my eyes to using different surfaces and changing things because of how I was holding the mouse and how much pressure that it was putting. So if that excites you and you're overall excited for the feel of the click being impactful, and you, let's say like you are a hard clicker like myself, you just click way too hard or you hold too hard, I feel like this mouse really kind of sets the stage and says, hey, you can adjust it, you can fine tune it and kind of find your groove with it. I think gosh, there's certain clicks that are just so clicky that I just push way too hard down on the buttons in general. And then when I hear the click, it kind of puts me into a rhythm, but this doesn't have much of a click at all. And I overall already just click faster naturally. Like it gives me a natural flow on this better. And that's just the beauty of just haptic switches and how they work. So I love the technology. That's all I'll say. I spent a lot of time with it to try to find its flaws and what I didn't like, and it opened more options for me. So hopefully that's a good review after 7 days. I'm sticking with it. You'll see me use it on stream. If I do switch to this, then I'll do community posts and be like, hey, this just transported me over to cloth. But at the end of the day, I still have this mouse to think. Is it worth the money? That's a tough one. If you are buying a mouse for the first time, sure, then this is it. If you already have a Logitech mouse, unless, like I said, you just are addicted to that click, you're looking for a lighter click, you're looking to click fast, you play a tactical shooter or League of Legends, maybe not so much Apex Legends, then this is a great mouse. And I think there's a reason why it's selling out and pros are using it so much. So again, if you enjoyed this video, hopefully it gave a little bit more insight on the journey that I've had the last 7 days and what I've been up to. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye, everybody.
They did it! They finally released the Superlight Mini. Took them some time, like 4 years or so, but it's actually good. I've been using it for a while and I like the shell, or I'm just used to the Superlight shell after all of these years. But anyways, let's try to remove some weight out of it and maybe change out the switches because they feel and sound not that great. Here, take a listen. Alright, let's go. A small detail I appreciate Logitech for is they don't lie about the weight. They usually round it up higher than what you're actually gonna get, which is not common these days. Most brands would say it's 49 gram mouse plus minus 3 grams. Alright, let's take it apart. Six screws for the base plate. And the insides are not that different from the Superlight. Got it. Whew. Oh, I'm getting there. Oh, finally. It's such a pain to remove the battery for the first time. And the battery is 290 milliamps an hour. I believe the original Superlight had 240 or 250, so there's an upgrade for the mouse that lives forever already. I like it. And if you don't use the power play, you can remove that too. The main PCB is 5.3 grams. The top shell is at 9.4 grams. And the shell feels pretty strong for a mouse that already has a skeleton for it. And this wall seems like a solid piece of plastic. Look at the thickness of it. Yeah, almost 2 millimeters. They did really beef it up. But the regular wall thickness is 0.9 millimeters. Side buttons are 0.8 of a gram. Main buttons are 5.7. And base plate without the on-off switch and the power play 6.4. Quite decent. Here's a better look at the skeleton. They have come a long way since the first days of Superlight. Let me try to find a skeleton from the Superlight one. Here's the somewhat a modified skeleton of the Superlight one. There's just a broken piece in here, but that's how it used to look like before. And that's how it looks like now. Look at this. Yeah, we have come a long way since the first Superlight. And the switch PCB looks almost similar to Superlight 2. I'm gonna check if they're interchangeable or not. Yep, wheel is the same as Superlight, which is at 2 grams. And the switches are 3.5 grams. And now is the part where I struggle to remove the ribbon cable. Because Logitech adhesives, they're so strong. Huh? Is that it? Come on. Got it. Here's the ribbon cable. Seems pretty identical to the Superlight 2. Interchangeable parts? Question mark? And the skeleton itself, 5.3 grams. Yeah, it's pretty much already pre-modded, so you don't really have to do much about it. And if you would like to have a non-destructible modifications to your Superlight 2C, you can just remove the skates, the puck, the power play, and maybe the on-off switch, and it's gonna be more than 5 grams removed already. On the second weighed in, it's at 4.7, but you get the point. And the last thing is, let's count the screws. It's a Logitech. "29 screws. They haven't changed. And this is the disassembly. And at this point, I wanted to compare it to my original Superlight, but I've left it at work, so here's a short video of me going and bring it back. Yeah, that should be somewhere there. Yoink. Here's my first gen Superlight that has been converted to USB-C with some extra wiring. But interestingly, the sidewalls was already that thick on the first gen Superlight, which I didn't really notice before. It's the same thing. And now let's try to remove some weight from the bottom plate. I would say the easiest way is going to be removing the USB dongle holder and the wireless charging, because I know I'm not going to use it. And here comes the best tool for modding, a rotary tool. I've left this part because there's a mounting point for a PCB, and this will get us to 5.3 grams. And I've decided that I will not be using the on-off switch that much, so I can get rid of it. If necessary, I can reach it with my fingers. It's not that hard. And I did cut these holes slightly bigger because there's internal ribs that is holding the mouse together. And here we go. The cheese grinder part is ready. I'm pretty sure not everybody's gonna be a fan of it, but if it makes a slight difference, I'm all in for it. I think I can remove this piece because there's enough support to stop the mouse PCB from wobbling. And since there are no switches, it's not gonna get pushed anyway. Yeah, the sensor doesn't seem to move around. And I think this is a good point to stop removing the weight from the base plate. We did got a lot of weight down, but we still have some rigidity. We got it down to 4 grams. That's a progress. And now it's time for the skeleton. We got these. And here's the final result. I did drill some holes here and there, but basically the skeleton is already quite lightweight, so there's not much I can do here. And the weight's gonna drop to 5 grams. And now's the fun part. Let me figure out what to do with the main shell. For which I usually take the picture of the shell and apply it to the 3D model so I can avoid mounting points when I'm coming up with a new design. And bam, a new camera angle. So basically, let me change the camera into a photo mode and snap a picture. And the top-down view. And we're good. And for the 3D model, I've downloaded the 3D scan of the Superlight made by Scout339, who made a great library of 3D scans. I'll keep a link to their work if you want to check them out. And to create the Superlight compact 3D model, I've just overlaid the images on top of the GPX scan and moved the shape around until it was roughly the same. And on top of that, I've tried to come up with some different ideas. And after a few different variations, this is the one that I've felt most confident. And with the idea ready, let's copy it to the real shell. And let's remove some of those ribs that are interfering with our design. It will make the shell slightly weaker, but I'm fine with it. Yeah, and I think the cuts should end here because furthermore, and it's gonna be interfering with my finger placement. And these clamps are barely holding on. There's tiny bit of plastic left to keep them in place. Yeah, you can see it there where my tweezers are. And here we go. I think it is symmetrical enough, and I did a pretty decent job at avoiding the mounting points. All I need to do now is clean up the cutouts and maybe do some freestyling. And if you look very closely, there's gonna be some amount of material that is left. And what I do with it, I usually take them out with my tweezers. I'm not sure if you can, but it's usually this tiny amount, but it makes the cutouts much more cleaner. Ah! Well, time to clean the desk. Looking real ugly. And if we remove some plastic from the main buttons, I think that should be it. It did came out pretty clean. And what I would like to try now is, usually on my previous GPX mods, I used to get rid of the springs on the main clicks. And if I do that now, I can remove a lot more plastic from the main buttons. And I will let you know if it's gonna mess up the click feel. I'll just need to make sure that I don't really press this area on the mouse. Yeah, I think that's gonna be fine.
"12 million blocks away from spawn on the unstable SMP generates terrain known as the Farlands, home to fantastical biomes, ancient civilizations of players, and most importantly, powerful..."
The fuck?
This year, Apple teased their secret AC/DC servers. That stands for Apple Chips and Data Centers, but that's just a code name. They're building these things in Texas to run private cloud compute, but chances are you and me will never get to see one, much less run it in our racks. But Apple used to sell their servers, not just Macs with rack mounts, but actual rack mount servers like this. These things were nice in their own way. This is the Xserve G5, and this is the first time I've ever gotten to touch one. I want to see how it runs, whether it still has any use, and most importantly, why they canceled these things. And yes, for all you vintage Mac nerds, I know there are workgroup servers and rebadged PowerPC servers from before the Xserve, but this video is just about the rack mount servers, not this behemoth. 65Scribe has about the best video on the internet about that monstrosity. My Xserve was provided by a friend of the channel, and it has dual 2 GHz G5 processors, 3 GB of RAM, and 3 empty hard drive bays. But before I can test it, I have to get it to boot, and right now it doesn't. I think I know why, and it's not just the empty hard drive bay, but I'm gonna need some tools to fix it. That's why I came to Micro Center, where they have every tool I need for this repair. They're sponsoring my Marcintosh videos, and it's a good thing because today I really need some soldering tools. What's cool is they have a huge selection. I'm gonna pick up this classic Heiko soldering station to repair the power supply, along with some iFixit tools. Honestly, this aisle is my favorite. You could start a repair shop with all the stuff that they have. Click on the link in the description to see all Micro Center's latest deals, and if you're in Austin, Texas, get ready for a grand opening later this year. Now that I have all the stuff unboxed, I'm realizing this iFixit mat is a lot smaller than I imagined based on the picture, so that's not gonna work, though this the magnetic feature is kind of cool. It has this little pencil or pen or whatever, and you can draw things on it. So that was a neat idea, but I think this is made for like phones. So I'm not going to use that. Luckily, I have this side panel from an old Mac Pro that I can use instead here. Now, without even powering on the server myself, why do I think it's the power supply that's the problem? Well, because it was built right in the middle of the capacitor plague, and 99% of the time, bad caps cause these things to fail. So before we can see this thing in all its glory in my rack, we're going to need to do a little surgery using the tools I got from Micro Center. And first of all, The House of Moth has this awesome guide for these power supplies. Mine is actually a revision 0, and the revisions that he used on here are 01 and 02. But the process should be pretty much the same. He also has a nice printout here with all the locations of the caps, which hopefully will be identical on here, and all the cap values, so that I don't have to do that documentation myself, which can be annoying and tedious, but it's a lot easier when you have somebody else do the list for you. Now, if you've never taken apart a power supply, this is the part where you might want to be a little extra careful. I know that this is a newer power supply, so it likely has bleeder resistors that take the power out of these giant capacitors that are under here when it's powered off. But a lot of power supplies don't have that, and you could get a wonderful nasty surprise if you touch certain contacts on the bottom here. You can also triple check things using a multimeter on different points on the board where capacitors are to make sure there's not a voltage there. One other annoyance with some of these things is this white goop in here. I think it's called scholastic or celastic. This stuff holds things in place, especially if they're in motion a lot, if there's a lot of vibration, which there can be in servers. But it's really annoying because you got to remove it to get these things out a lot of times. Some of them, like these two capacitors, will probably come out together, but they're also glued to that guy. So I'm going to need to cut that away, or maybe figure out some other ways to get it out of there using knives and little poking and prodding without harming the stuff around them. So that's always fun. And I will need to take off this guy as well. Working on a metal surface is probably not the best idea, but this is enough shock-proof insulation, right? There's some thermal paste on here, and it has oozed out the side as well. And I'll try to remember to put new thermal paste on here before I put it back together. We'll see if I remember. Look at this. Look at this capacitor. So at this point, I've marked all the locations of the capacitors using a marker, and some of these are a little bit interesting. They're right in the mix with other stuff. So we're going to see if I can get my desoldering gun in here. This is a Heiko FR301, and Micro Center does sell this. I actually had this, so I didn't get another one at Micro Center because that'd be silly. But this thing heats up the tip very hot and also has a vacuum pump inside and will suck the solder out. You don't have to have one of these to do this repair, but it makes it a lot easier because it does two things at the same time. It heats up the joint and pulls the solder out. So we'll see how far we get along with this. Since this is a newer board, I'm hoping that this will just work without any extra steps, but I might need to flow fresh solder in some of the joints. We'll see. Well, getting all these caps out was a little bit of an adventure. Some of the pads are in areas that have either a lot of little SMD components, which makes it kind of annoying to get this guy in there. So I kind of had to wick out some solder and then actually put in some extra solder and then suck it all out with this. One interesting thing that I found with this is if you have an area of the board that takes a lot of heat, like with one of these giant copper planes for a trace, you actually kind of need to leave it on there for a little bit extra to make sure it melts all the way down through the component and then suck it out. If you don't do that, you'll leave some solder in there, or the other end of the component will get stuck and then you end up ripping out some of the feet on these things. So anyway, at this point I need to put the new capacitors in, and I'm going to refer to this handy map from the House of Moth. After my last video, a few people were asking about what this stuff is. This is a Menda little IPA alcohol dispenser. I guess it can do other things besides alcohol, but you push down on the top and it squirts out a little bit of alcohol so that you can grab it with a Q-tip or a brush or a wet wipe or whatever you want. And it has a nice little lid on it. And this is ESD safe, the blue one. It's a little more expensive, but it's a very nice little container. When I worked at a radio station, we had these everywhere, and they were very handy because they don't spill, and you can kind of close the lid and keep a little bit in there if you need to. They do spill if you tilt them over, like I just did here. But anyway, that's that, and I'll leave a link to it if I remember. Otherwise, the other thing that a bunch of people mentioned was to get the flux off of here, I should get some of these Kim wipes. So I bought some. These are like lint-free wipes. So instead of just brushing it around on the board and leaving it in place, use this and it will hopefully gather some of it off. So we're going to try that and see if this works, because I do have a bunch of flux on here. So let's do this. First I'll get some alcohol on the board, and I'm going to take this wipe. We're going to try to wipe it up with this. Let's see how this does. So it is gathering some stuff up, so that's good. This still rips on all the little pointy bits, so it'd be nice if they made a magical substance that didn't do that. And I just realized I didn't clip this one, so I'll have to clip that. But that is working a lot better, so thank you to everybody who suggested these little tips. The best thing about the tech community on YouTube is we always are learning. Well, at least if you're humble enough to know that you don't know everything, you're always learning something new in every project that you take on. Some people don't really care too much about comments and the interaction, but I think that's the part of YouTube that makes it YouTube and not BoringTube. That actually is working pretty well. So thanks for that suggestion. I did have one spot on here that I was a little bit sketchy. Let's see here. If I flip this over, see these replacement caps were too large to fit under here. I think it would fit under there if I took that completely off and put it in. It would have fit because it's so close. But I didn't want to smash the cap in there and break it. So I left these two over here. There is space for another cap here, so this way these fit within the physical dimensions, so I don't know if they'll fit within this case. Hopefully they do. But now that I have that all done and I've checked my checklist of caps off, I'm good, and hopefully this just goes back together and works. We'll see. Alright, the last step before I put this on the server, in case I missed something, I'm going to test it on the bench here. I will plug this power supply in. I don't know if this plug is powered or not, but we'll see momentarily. Hopefully this works. I heard it click, so that could be good. I'm on DC. I'm hearing a whine. I'm getting 12 volts, so I think that's good. I think that this power supply might work in the server. We'll see. Now, the last step for any project like this is I always like to leave a label on here saying that I recapped it and what the date is, so that 20 or 30 years in the future, somebody can either blame me or thank me. Okay. There we go. And now it's time to put this back in the server. So the Xserve comes with these drive trays that have SATA cables. I think this is like SATA 1 or SATA 2. It's a very old standard, so I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try putting in a SATA 3 SSD that I got from Micro Center. It's 120 gigabytes, Inland Professional. Typically, these older computers, you don't need anything super fast. It's going to be way faster than the hard drives these things came with. But because this is a 2.5 inch drive, I'm going to use this 2.5 to 3.5 adapter. And of course, Apple being Apple, they made these proprietary drive sleds. Look at this connector on the back. I don't know what that thing is. Even if they were making things somewhat standardized, it's Apple. They're going to do something. Alrighty, first things first, I also have a replacement. I think this is called a half AA battery, 3.6 volts. I have a pack of these that I can put in here. And now we should be getting the RTC so it can save its clock. I'm going to put the power supply in, and it looks like we just push this in this way. It kind of bonks against this plastic here. Okay, well, if you hit it, it works. At this point, I have the hard drive plugged in, well, the SSD plugged in. I have this guy on. Get these guys back in here. Everything should work. I have a monitor plugged in. I don't have a keyboard and mouse. I'll go grab one of those. This is not powered on yet. I don't want to turn on power to the cord until I have complete control over it. So I'm going to plug this in without power. And I'm going to use Home Assistant to turn it on. I'm going to turn this on and we'll see what happens. I heard some sounds. And this is making a high-pitched noise, like coil whine. Nothing's exploded yet, that's good. We got 9.2 watts of power, and I'm going to press the power button over here and see what happens. Sounds like a server. I'm not getting any LEDs on the drive bay there. So I hope I didn't break those. Oh, there we go. Both LEDs. This is looking good. Do we have anything on? Oh, there's the monitor. Okay, we have no boot drive, so this is good. Everything seems to be working, which is kind of a miracle. I'm going to look at this. Oh, wow. 200 watts. It's not booted and doing anything. The fans aren't even at 100%, but it peaked at 200 watts and it's staying there. That's a lot of power for a server that's probably about as powerful as a Raspberry Pi. This was the box that I got with this, and it has macOS 10 Server 10.3. I also have copies of 10.2. You can see this was even, I guess this was an upgrade from 10.2 on here. Let's see if we can, let's see if this works in this CD-ROM drive or DVD. What is this? It doesn't say if it's a CD-ROM or DVD-ROM. I'm not sure, but it says it's the CW8123C. And I can tell it's kind of compressed here, but let's see if this works. Okay. That's in there. We're gonna get a boot. Come on, I hear it. Oh, there we go. The optical drive works. That's crazy. I love how everything is so stretched out on here. It's probably 640 by 480 on this 16 by 9 monitor. But I have that plugged into the VGA on this card. And yeah, I mean, there is heat coming out of here, so there are 200 watts being used in there, that's for sure. But I'm gonna let this boot up, and we'll get back to it in a minute. But look at this, 20 years later, and we have dual G5s working, booting up macOS 10 Server 10.3. This is excellent. It's not even loud. People online are always complaining, oh, these things are so loud. It's like, yeah, it's loud compared to a Mac, but if you're talking servers, this is downright quiet. While it's booting up, I guess I'll check the sound level too. And that's of course with the cover off. It'll probably be a little bit quieter with the cover on, but I'm not gonna put the cover on right now because it's such a pain. I just noticed, I love how there's like a FireWire cable for this front FireWire port. They just like plug the FireWire cable into the motherboard somewhere, and then they plug it in here, and then they route it to here. Wonder what the insertion loss is with all these plugs. There's the CD, it's spun down, so let's see if this is booted. There it is. Oh wow. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but it's kind of wavy. Got that wonderful VGA vibe. I hope that's not a sign of this card having a problem with the capacitors or something, but that's a future problem and there's other ways to solve that too. Did I mention there's a serial port on here, by the way? One of the first Macs that had a serial port since like the 80s. This is used for console access, but I have plans. Yeah, it's still 190 watts, pretty much continuously here. I apologize for the flickering, but we're just gonna have to live with that. USB is working apparently. And I think we're gonna get macOS 10 installed on this thing. First, I'm gonna try to format that SSD. Hopefully it recognizes it at least. Let's see. No, it's not there. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, so new challenge. Try to find a way to get a hard drive or SSD working in here for boot. Alternatively, I might be able to use that FireWire port to boot. That would be very annoying because I'd have to have an external drive. But we'll see. I mean, I thought it was SATA as SATA, but this, like I said earlier, this might be like SATA 1 or SATA 2 and might be incompatible. Or I really hope that Apple didn't require like proprietary hard drive firmware for these things, because that would be absolutely insane. So the 120 gig, which was a premium, or I forget which kind, didn't work. I'm gonna try this Inland Platinum, and I'm not even gonna put it in the little case for now. I'm just gonna slide it in here because I have a feeling I'll be testing a bunch of drives to get one to work. Let's get that in there and turn this back on. Now let's check with a 240 gig. Open disk utility, fingers crossed. I don't think this will work. Oh look, there it is. Okay. Well, let's erase it and let's do extended journaled, and we'll call it Xserve G5. Erase. Will this work? It looks like it worked. Okay. Well, let's install macOS 10 server. And we'll see if we can get this thing booted up off of there too. I've had this happen before a few times. It says you can't boot off of it, but when you just format a hard drive fresh, it does this with like 10.3 or 10.2, some of those early macOS 10s. So I'm going to reboot the computer by quitting the installer. And we're going to try this again and see if it works. Okay, attempt number 2. There we go.
A few moments later.
Okay, that finished. Let's see what happens. Back in the day when you needed a server key for this thing. Ha! Alright. Well, I guess we can plug this thing into our network. And then you have separate LEDs, like full-size LEDs for activity and connection on here. That just doesn't seem that efficient. Now I am going to set up a network time service on here, and that's one of the things that I hope to see if I can do better than other Macs, even more modern Macs, using that serial port. Alright, it's configured. Let's reboot the Mac, and we'll see if Xserve is running off that hard drive. And there we go. That is very fast coming on the SSD. It's funny, this desktop background is kind of muted. In fact, it looks like everything's like desaturated. I guess that's the way that Apple distinguished the server OS from their desktop OS. But let's go into server admin and see if we're getting information about this. Here we are. It says that web server's running. So far, nothing is being served up, and I don't see any other major information here. I guess they have system information, 240 gigabytes there, CPU usage, and network traffic. That's all you got there. Let's check for updates. This would be so funny if there's actually a server update for this. Nope, network error. Okay. And settings, got date and time. That is definitely wrong. I guess the next thing is to see if this is actually serving up a web page. So I'm over at my Mac and I'm going to go to xserve g5.local. There it is. Okay. So we are serving up web traffic. So this is kind of neat. Apple has an Xserve server monitor app that lets you list all the servers. I guess this worked with their other servers too. But I can get all the information about this thing. I can even turn on the system identification light. That's kind of cool. Pretty full-featured little app here. And there is, what is that? Enclosure intrusion. So yeah, the enclosure is off right now. So it is saying that that is not locked in place. So I'm already running a web server. It's not getting time from Apple, so that's something I'll have to check into, because I do want to use this for NTP time using the serial port for GPS input. I'm going to see if I can figure that out. If I can, this could be a little time server. Well, not a little time server, but a very big time server. But it could be the most accurate Mac time server in the past 25 years, because no other Macs have serial input. So if I can train the clock on here using a GPS, which you can't do as well using USB on newer Macs, then that could be interesting. I was also given this little guy, which is just a little hex key, but a very fancy Apple one with knurling and everything. And it goes onto this, and look at this. This is a little system lock. It locks all the hard drive trays in place. But what's crazy is the way that it recognizes when it's locked and not locked. See that? When it's locked, it turns on the LED. It has two little optical sensors here. That seems way over-engineered, but I guess if it works, it works. These might be magnetic sensors, Hall effect or something, but I think they're just optical with those two little light boxes. But yeah, complicated, and it's a very hefty little locking key there. I'm going to install this in my rack, and I was lucky to get the whole rack mount kit along with the Xserve. Otherwise, this would be really hard to do. Since it's a beefy server, I used cage nuts, and in addition to offering the usual blood sacrifice, I also lost yet another cage nut in the depths of my rack rails. The rack mounting for this thing is weird. You have to install the bulky outer enclosure in your rack with a template to keep it square. Then there are these horrible back rail mounts, and then after that's done, you slide the naked server into the enclosure. Later Xserves went to a more traditional side mount rail system, but this box is really awkward to install if you're by yourself. Besides that, probably the most routine maintenance would be replacing a failed disk, and those drive slugs do work well, just like Steve Jobs said back when he launched this thing in 2002.
We've designed a really nice carriage where you can unplug them, and so just, boom, 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 boom. Really easy. Take one out, just, that's it. Very simple.
But because of that proprietary connector, these sleds are more of a liability than something I think sysadmins would remember fondly. I mean, if the G5 this thing were based on had plain SATA connectors, why not the Xserve? The Xserve was different in another important way too. There wasn't a dazzling launch saying it was going to change the world. Steve Jobs got on stage and used a word I don't think I've ever heard associated with an Apple product.
If there's one word that I would say describes our entrance into the server market, it is humble. We know we have a lot to learn.
Apple tried building their own idea of what the future would look like for Macs and racks, and ultimately that vision failed. There were a lot of reasons for it, but it is interesting to see Apple getting back into the rack mount server game. I just wish that we could still buy them. Until next time, I'm Jeff Geerling. I remember seeing Apple's announcement about the HomePod minis now, 6 years ago. You really need to refresh these things. But the thing that interested me most was how you could pair two of these up to be stereo speakers, like if you connect them to an Apple TV.
When you place two in the same room, they'll intelligently become a stereo pair, filling your space with rich, enveloping sound.
I didn't think much about it at the time, but now that I've learned a lot more about timing and networking, I got to wondering, how do they do it? How do they make it so you can plug two of these in anywhere and they're not connected to each other, and then you can pop them into a stereo speaker pair or do multi-room audio? I always have a wire going between the left and right speakers, and wires are pretty deterministic. It's easy to make sure both channels are in phase and you don't get that weird comb effect. Just make sure the wires are a known length and put the speakers roughly the same distance away from you, like for my desk monitors here. But HomePods Mini can be stuck wherever. How does Apple get sound to sync perfectly between two of these wherever you put them? You might think it's easy, and if you just have one speaker and you add in a big buffer, it kinda is. But once you have two, well, through the magic of buying another one of these things, I'm gonna find out how they did it. And rather than do a whole video where I just lecture you on it, I figured I'd take you on this journey with me. Can we figure out how Apple made these little speakers turn into stereo speakers without using a wire? Okay, now I've never tried one of these before, so this will be a first for me. But, oh wow, that's a built-in cable right there that's not replaceable. That's kind of annoying for something that might be in your home and be beat up by a kid or dropped or something. At least it's a braided cable, but that does not seem like it's going to be easy to fix if it breaks. That just plugs in via USB-C. I could plug it into my Mac. I wonder if it becomes like a speaker if you just plug it into your Mac. There's a little setup guide, I guess. iPhone or iPad. Bluetooth. Settings. No, I don't see any. Whoa. It just did something. Is there really no way to set this up on a Mac? What does Apple expect you to do if you don't have an iPhone? There's got to be a way. You need an iPhone or iPad. You can't set up a HomePod with a Mac. What the? Apple? Seriously? Come on, Apple. Alright, I guess I'll have to get up my iPhone. Let's see what we do here. We hold it close to it or something? No? Okay. I'm guessing that's like the startup bong for a HomePod Mini. Welcome to the iPhone. There's got to be like a little NFC beacon or something in here. And it's not letting me set this up. We're 8 minutes. Oh, you know what? Let me show you this. The iPad over there apparently is trying to set up the HomePod. I think that's why we're gonna try connecting again and see what happens here. It'd be so much easier if you could just plug it into your Mac via USB-C and connect, but Apple has to be all fancy with these wireless protocols that apparently only work on iOS devices. Seriously, come on, Apple. Okay, we finally have the HomePod Mini setup thing again. Let's hit setup and hold that like that, I guess. Okay, we're a bit loud on that. Okay, you can quiet down a little bit there. Apparently you can't stop Siri. Don't recognize my voice, please. You can't just set this up as a smart speaker. It has to be a really smart speaker, which means it has to attach itself to your account. I literally just want to use this as a speaker, that's all. But apparently that requires this. That'd be so dumb. Let's see, sound. Okay, so we do have, I can use the speaker now at least. There's Office. And let's hear a song on it. It's interesting, there's a bit of a delay there. You can hear that there's, when I hit play, 1, 2, 2.5 seconds. So there is a kind of a queuing effect going on here. I wonder how that will differ with more than one speaker. You can turn that down. Agree. Okay.